Now COP26 is well and truly underway. One term that we're going to hear a lot about over the next 2 weeks is this term net zero. So I thought this video would be really useful just to explain what this term really means. We know about 130 countries across the world have already either set net zero targets or are considering setting net zero targets. Many or most have set the target for 2050. That's the date that they'll achieve it. Although a few have set a slightly later target at 2060, including China, and some are yet to set a target date at all. So what does net zero actually mean? It means that what we're going to be polluting and producing in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, so carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide and the other greenhouse gas emissions, will still be around, will still be there to some degree, but by 2050 we need to be able to reduce significantly the amount that we're producing so we can balance out the rest with carbon removal. And by carbon removal we mean either planting more trees, using forestry, nature-based carbon removal type technologies. There are other things as well, such as soil sequestration, or using more industrial and mechanical type solutions, such as direct air capture plants, of which there are already a few around the world. One thing that we'll need to do is be able to scale those up. So net zero is about getting down to as little as we can in terms of carbon emissions across the world, and then removing the remaining emissions that we haven't able to get down to zero. There's some milestones on the way to that countries need to also try and achieve, or not countries, the world as a whole. So the aim is to try and reduce carbon emissions by 45% by 2030 compared to 2010 levels. That's a tough target, and that's one that I think we're going to miss. But we'll see what can come out of this the next 2 weeks, see if there's anything that can happen to make that more achievable. What does net zero mean for companies? A lot of companies now seem to be setting targets to be net zero too, or even claiming to be net zero already. So what does that actually mean? Over the last few years we've been working with lots of companies that have been calculating their carbon emissions and reducing their carbon emissions, then offsetting the carbon emissions that they haven't managed to reduce. And that's through supporting projects around the world that help to reduce carbon emissions elsewhere. A lot of them will be setting a target for net zero maybe by 2030, 2040 or 2050. But the important thing for those businesses is to also recognise that whilst they are on the path to net zero and achieving good carbon reductions within their business and supply chain, that they need to be also balancing out the emissions that they're making on the way. So net zero for businesses is very similar to being carbon neutral. It potentially increases the scope of what they're looking at, and by the time we get to 2050 carbon offsetting will look quite different, and it will be about carbon removable. I hope this has been useful. I'll be posting more of these videos over the next few days. Please remember to subscribe and follow us, and feel free to share the video